Coming off of a Stage 2 playoffs that is insane. We're so glad you're here with us to recap all the action. I'm joined by two great co-hosts, part of the beat writing team here at the Game Haus. Joined by Kate.
Hello.
And Zach as
Hey.
well. We're stoked you guys are here with us to talk about this playoffs. Before we get to that, again, we say it every week. The only consistent thing we do on this show is we got to reset our watch first. We're going to give you guys a recap of what we've been up to just lately in our esports careers. You know, plug our pieces, those sorts of things. Good stuff. Necessary stuff. So, Kate, why don't you start us off? What have you been up to this past week?
I kind of took advantage of the little break because neither of my teams made it to the playoffs, which was a major feels bad. But I'm excited to get back to writing. This week I'm going to have some fun articles coming out on the Fusion and on Contenders as well. And then we also are doing more stuff with House Queens, which it will be tomorrow. We have some special guests tomorrow night as well. Liz Lombardo and Christine Yankel, Stratus's mom. They will be on for a special Mother's Day episode tomorrow at 9 p.m. EST here.
Damn, that's incredible.
That'll be exciting.
Holy
We're
cow.
excited to have them. They're going to be amazing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, that's been like the thing of the week is the Overwatch League moms. It's like incredible.
Yeah.
So you guys getting them is huge. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Heck yeah. Zach, what have you been up to this past week?
Covering the Gladiators and their crash out of the playoffs. I graduated college. That was pretty fun.
Dude, congrats.
Congrats!
Thank you.
Wow.
Streaming D&D on Tuesdays right before House Queens. So if you want to come early, it's a good time. It's on the Game House's Twitch.
Nice.
And then doing some stuff, do the Thing Theater, some fun YouTube stuff. Check it out.
Awesome, dude. Heck yes. Man, just so many different kinds of content here. This is great. Look at this. So my past week, I was in a wedding this past weekend, so that kind of made my writing a little bit more minimal than usual. But I do have a recap of the top plays from the Stage 2 playouts coming out tomorrow. Worked on that today. And then I'm about to ramp up. I'm not graduated from grad school yet, technically, but I'm done with my coursework. Like, I'm not in class anymore. I just have a required internship, which I'm actually doing here at the Game House. So,
Nice. You're almost done. Oh, you'll dab here.
I'll dab here, just not
You'll dab
at
here.
Dallas. For context for the viewers out there, I was at the Dallas homestead, and Kate aggressively peer pressured me to dab on camera.
Wasn't that aggressive?
And you did?
And I didn't. I
And he didn't.
couldn't do it.
You hurt my feelings.
I had
You
the
let
press
him
pass.
know. Exactly.
I blew
Thank
it.
you. Zach.
So I will dab here though for no more graduate school, because holy cow, it's been a while. It's been a
It's
long
okay.
time.
I'll dab when I'm in Atlanta. I'll do
Please,
it for
please do.
I'll do it with you.
I'm hoping to be there too, by the way. So
Yay,
we will
that'd be
see.
fun.
We will see. Things. Anyway, but I got a lot more stuff coming this week. With being done with all the coursework, all the papers, and all that, I really want to get some coverage on the CEC that happened this past weekend, the College Esports Championship. There were several titles played, Overwatch being one of them. Top 8 colleges from this massive bracket of teams came and played at a LAN in Houston this past weekend, and I feel like that is such an awesome thing. I just want to type words about it. I don't know what words I want to type. I don't know how to do it, but so I really want to just cover that and give it the quality coverage it deserves. So I'm going to really try and work on that this week, and it kind of works out because, like we've talked about, we're kind of in a break from Overwatch right now. We've got All-Stars coming up, which we'll talk about, but at least from like super serious competitive Overwatch, we've got a little bit of a break, so that's nice. But the thing we're here to talk about, the momentous thing that just happened, the San Francisco Shock were Stage 2 playoff champions. They took home $500,000 for doing it, and they had to work pretty hard to get there. So we're going to recap kind of the journey of that team to the finals, the team they played against in the finals, and kind of all the teams that have come in between. So we just kind of want to break it down round by round and give you guys the recap on most important things, maybe to go back and check out if you missed them, players to kind of watch, those sorts of things. So let's just start it right off on the first day. Some of the first matches we had were the Shanghai Dragons, giving the San Francisco Shock a run for their money, actually, and breaking the golden streak. That is a notable thing that happened.
Ooh.
Big time.
They did it.
What did you guys think of that match? I mean, it was a 3-1 for the San Francisco Shock, spoiler alert, but Shanghai played that one pretty close, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was insanely close.
Yeah.
Very, very
Definitely
close.
closer than I thought it was going to be.
I think so too.
Really? Because they played them pretty close the week prior before they got into the playoffs. Like,
true.
it wasn't. I mean, the score doesn't reflect it very well because that was a 4-0. But like,
Right.
they put the Shock to task, and I think that's a pretty incredible feat.
Yeah. One thing we talked about on the preview last Wednesday was the fact that you're not gonna go mirror goats into San Francisco Shock and kind of live to tell about it. It's just not gonna work. And I think when we saw Shanghai succeed in this match, it's when they were doing the Sombra and Farah comp, and at one point on what was it, Oasis, they had Youngjin on Soldier even, and they were just pressuring them at choke with DPS, and it worked really well. So it was interesting. I mean, they had to go away from it just based on different map types, and it was just not as advantageous to do. And Shanghai's kind of known for their Sombra goats, but still, I mean, I think they gave San Francisco a pretty good run for their money overall.
I'd agree.
Yeah, before the Titans, like, they were the closest really to like make them work for it.
Yeah.
So I think that really speaks volumes to where Shanghai is going to be going into Stage 3 as well.
I think
They're going to be a top contender. I think they'll be one of the top contenders team again.
I think so too. I think they're definitely on their way up. If this didn't show anything else.
Yeah.
But the other game that day, I think, is another very interesting one. This is one that I don't think a lot of people could have called from the start. I certainly didn't call it.
Did.
Some person on WatchHaus last Wednesday called it exactly. She might be in chat right now.
All the TGH girls were behind this.
Okay, well,
this crazy witch prediction.
Yeah. So the Hangzhou Spark beat the London Spitfire 3-1 in the other match on Thursday, surprising a lot of people, including myself. It's not like everyone guessed this. What did you guys see in that match that stood out to you? How did Hangzhou do this? What do you guys think?
Zach likes London, so I'll let him go first.
Making Gesture play Reinhardt. As we've all seen, he's not the best at it. He is arguably one of the best Winstons in the league.
Yeah.
But his Reinhardt play is not up to par, and there were times this season where it looked like it could be up to par, like the fact that London finished where they did and did have that second playoff seed. Obviously it worked well enough for them to do that, but when it came to the Spark, they couldn't deal with it. Their play, no big plays came from London. They couldn't get anything and were just absolutely had everything handed back to them. So
yeah.
Yeah, the Spark played out of their minds, in my opinion.
Fair
IDK was
enough.
insane. Gushui, Adora did really well. I just thought they were a lot more cohesive as a team. I felt like they were just kind of playing better around each other, and I think that's what gave them the advantage. Because London has really good players, but one of their issues for me is they don't always play as a team, and that can be one of their biggest weaknesses. And it definitely was this weekend for them as well.
Very much
that's
so.
Kind of what I was betting on when we were making predictions and stuff like that. Was London does well, but especially in the finals and stuff, it can go either way.
Yeah.
And I know that better than anyone. So
That's true. Philly.
I will say though that because first off, incredible play from the Spark. Not gonna rag on them at all. They played incredibly. But as Chad is pointing out, Fury did not eat many grabs, and I will say that part of the reason is because the Spark weren't running Zarya that often.
Yeah.
they weren't.
So he didn't have anything to eat.
That's true, and I think that's a smart play by the Shock. I mean, to an extent, if you're reading and you have a diva of that caliber, you just have to play around it. You just can't do it to a certain extent. Yeah, I agree. I mean, everything you guys said is, I think, right on par. I think that for London moving forward, a shining point they have is that it looks like the meta is shifting away from Reinhardt. It has been certainly kind of in patches leading up to this. I think they're trying to get Reinhardt out of the primary main tank slot, favoring maybe Orisa and Winston more based on offense or defense. So I think that will play in London's favor extremely well.
Absolutely.
I think Gesture's got a very capable Orisa. It just seems like the Reinhardt, there's so many mind games in Reinhardt that are very niche, and players like Super have just mastered. Jester has mastered other mind games that are involved in Winston and Orisa, for example. So it's just hard to have all of them mastered like that. So yeah, and then for the Spark, this is a huge deal. You're going up against the defending champions. You've never been in a stage playoff before. This is by far your most clutch match ever, and you come out and beat them 3-1. So going into the next round, when they play the San Francisco Shock, people leading up to that, I thought, I was like, maybe Hangzhou can give them a run. They just took down London, who was playing red hot. Maybe they do it. We'll get to how that went later, because it was Saturday's game, but it didn't happen. Spoiler again. Anything else from you guys on Thursday's games that we didn't cover?
Please give me more Orisa from Gesture. Those are always great matches when that happens, especially if we are moving into some more bunker comp stuff. Let's see it. Let's see what fun things you can do. I want to see Junkrat back, but because I'm a selfish Junkrat main and love to see him get played on the Overwatch League stage. But it's just, they're so inconsistent. And as you said, they were playing red hot and then just had a not good game.
Yeah.
So that's something they got to fix. And that's something they've been trying to fix since season 1 of the Overwatch League.
Yeah. I mean, that Hanamura map was just hard to watch. That offense was just, brutal. It was very hard to watch. But equally, like we said before, equally good from Hangzhou. So not to just be pessimistic.
Fair play to
them. Absolutely, I totally agree. So looking ahead, so we have a pair of 3-1s on Thursday, you have a pair of 3-0s on Friday. Unfortunately, one of those both not going in Kate's favor.
That was a sad girl.
So
very sad girl.
To recap the scores, we had New York Excelsior beating the Los Angeles Gladiators 3-0. And we had the Vancouver Titans beating the Dallas Fuel 3-0. Kate, I'll kind of let you start in memoriam for the Gladiators in the New York matchup, because I know Zach's gonna have a lot to say about the Gladiators as well. But what happened in that match, Kate? Why did they get 3-0'd? What happened to your boys?
I honestly can't even tell you. I do not know what the issue is. New York for me didn't really play that hot. They haven't really been looking like themselves. Not to say they're playing badly, but they haven't been the New York that I know that they can be since stage 1 and stage 2 as well. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was kind of hopeful because of that. I was like, they haven't been playing that great. Gladiators have been looking really great. They almost went, I think they only lost one game that entire stage of stage 2, just one. Yeah. And that was the Boston game, which that's just kind of tradition at that point for the Boston Gladiators, unfortunately. Yeah. But they've been looking great. So going into this, I was like, yeah, they're gonna give them a fight. It's gonna be really, really close. I was expecting a 3-2. I don't even know, just something close. But they just got rolled, and I don't really know what the problem is. I think Zach might be better equipped to tell me what that problem might be. Yeah.
Going into the week, I also had the expectations of a 3-2. I had something along the lines of Atlanta beat New York twice. Gladiators lost one game. Both these teams are coming off of a loss. And one of those losses is much bigger than the other, with New York losing to Atlanta, who only won 3 games, and 2 of which were against New York. And so I was hoping, okay, both of these teams are kind of in the let's use this to rebound and go back up, and it didn't happen. New York went with the strategy that worked against the Gladiators the entirety of stage 1, which was pick off, bully Roar as much as you could and make sure that he's the first one to fall, and the Gladiators will lose. Big Goose was very up and down that game. He had a lot of times where he died where he really shouldn't have, or he was overextending. But there were other times where he was playing great, had some great boops, had some great sound barrier. He was all over the place. Shaz was just kind of quiet, not really super good or super bad. Had his moments, but it's also hard when you're going up against Jonak to compare who the other Zenyatta is. Decay looked good, as he has all season. There's a reason that he's in the All-Star game. There's a reason that he's the Rookie of the Year for the Gladiators. There was a reason that everyone wanted him. And I think he outplayed Nene most of the game, but in this meta, you can't just have one person carry. It doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
And Hydration as well kind of looked flip-floppy. He had his good moments, but oftentimes he'd go down and the rest of the Gladiators would go down. And it was just the New York was able to find the first pick most of the time, and the Gladiators weren't winning any of the 5v6 fights. So it's a bit unfortunate that they did get matched up against New York in the first round.
Yeah.
I know they're just their history of who they've played in playoffs. It's been hard, but again, if you're gonna be contending for some of those top spots, you got to beat those early teams.
Yeah.
Like, you have to beat the best teams in the league if you're going to. And as much as I don't want to chalk up a lot of this stage for a lot of these teams as strength of schedule, you look at some of the top teams, the Titans, New York, apparently not against Atlanta, the Gladiators, and San Francisco. They didn't have some of the hardest opponents. They didn't meet any of they didn't meet each other throughout the year of this stage.
Yes, yeah.
So they didn't have a lot of practice against teams that were really gonna stick it to them. So when it came to that Boston game and they were finally pushed up against, it was kind of like it should have been a wake up call, but that wake up call can still come and New York can still be New York.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's completely fair. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that if you're a Gladiators fan coming away from this match, you can be happy that it happened in the Stage 2 playoffs and not the season playoffs or the Stage 4 playoffs. Like, at least get this out of the way early. Get this out of your system. The meta is going to change anyway. This is not what we're going to watch in the playoffs. This is going to be, it's hopefully, fingers crossed, going to be a different looking meta by then. My goodness, if it's the same.
Give us sure for it.
Yikes. But if you're looking at teams moving forward that are going to be well equipped to handle that, I think you're most optimistic, maybe besides San Francisco, in the entire league, you're most optimistic for the Gladiators. So if you're a Glads fan, definitely this is not a moment to be, hanging it up and switching over to the Valiants or anything.
Oh, absolutely.
Despite their spicy roster moves, whoa, I think you stick with the Gladiators if you're a Glads fan. You're fine.
Yeah. And Bishu's coming back. He had a great time down in Contenders, learning some things.
Dunking on kids.
As much as Void is incredible and has proven that he should be the starter, it's going to be good to have Bishu back just for morale.
Yes.
I think even if Bishu doesn't see a single minute on stage, as sad as that would be, but that's also the case of what we've seen from a lot of Season 1 favorites.
Yeah.
It's still important to have him on the roster with the team every week, practicing with them, making them better, because he is an elite player, just like Void. And to have both of them on your team is incredible.
Yeah. I think the same on the opposite side for New York, and then we'll move on, is the same for Sabiobi. I think he's a very similar presence for that team. He's kind of team uncle or whatever you want to call him, where he is. I think he has taken it upon himself, similar to how Bishu has, to not need the spotlight. He doesn't need to be the guy out there clicking heads and being the League of MP. He just needs to improve his team as much as possible. So I think if you're a fan of either one of those teams, keep those players and keep utilizing them for what they're good at. And that's leadership inside the dugout kind of thing.
Let's see Tracer again.
Also that. Then we may actually see Sabiobi. Or we might just see more Nene. I don't really know at this point. New York, you're weird. Anyway. Other game on Friday, the other massacre that happened was the Vancouver Titans taking out the Dallas Fuel 3-0. Any of you guys want to take a swing at explaining that one? Or was it just Vancouver being Vancouver?
Vancouver's Vancouver.
Vancouver's Vancouver. I don't know. I wanted to have hope, but going back on what Zach was talking about, strength of schedule, and I was looking back through who all Dallas defeated the stage. Some not good teams. They had a pretty easy schedule, so maybe that was giving me false hope for that process. But, I don't know. It was just kind of frustrating because I know what these boys are capable of, and I've been a fan of this team for a very long time. Back to the envious days. These are my OG boys. And it's just, it's frustrating to see them doing so well, and then to see them kind of choke, even if it is against Vancouver. They didn't play the way they could have, and it's kind of the same situation with the Gladiators. Well, they just weren't pulling out all the stops that I know they could have at least tried.
Yeah,
that was just kind of frustrating for me.
Yeah, I think another thing I would add is I think both of these teams had relatively easy strength of schedules coming in, but I think if you're the Fuel, you're just exhausted despite that coming in. I mean, you've been traveling, you played a lot of games when you were traveling. I mean, you've been going through a lot coming into this, whereas Vancouver has just been kind of kicking back the past few weeks, not really having to do too much. So you're looking at an exhausted team that is possibly sneaking into the playoffs a little bit versus the Goliath of the league, well rested. maybe our optimism was a little falsely placed here, because that hearing it that way, it's like, well, yeah, Vancouver's going to win. But I also thought Dallas could have put up a fight here, if nothing else for coaching, and we know what these players can do. But yeah, definitely a tough one, honestly. But so yeah, that sets up Sunday's games. Those two games set up the semifinals on Saturday. God, not Sunday. Sorry. Saturday's games, where we had the Hangzhou Spark, like I said, red hot, taking down London, coming up against the San Francisco Shock, who had beat Shanghai after a golden stage. That game was rough. It's a 4-0 for San Francisco. And then Vancouver Titans play against New York. They win 4-1 in what was a closer game. Well, we can talk about more. I think closer, obviously, than the Spark Shock game. For these games, a lot of the semifinals to me is kind of the setting up of the finals. We have the two teams that are coming in. Everyone wanted to see them in the finals. Everyone was banking on seeing them in the finals. And this just is the primer. This is just like the pregame for the finals we wanted to see. But, do you guys see anything from these games that maybe gave us an indication of what we would see in the finals? Anything that you saw in Vancouver, any weaknesses you saw New York exploit, or any strengths that you saw San Francisco really ramp up on against the Spark? Zach, I'll kind of start with you here. What did you see in maybe either one of those realms?
I didn't get to see the Spark game, unfortunately, but that everyone was looking forward to the New York versus the Titans matchup that we all thought we were going to get last stage playoffs. Yeah. Until New York lost to Seoul. But I think that it definitely lived up to the hype. I think that everyone who was excited to see it can walk away from that excited, unless you're a diehard New York fan who's just always sad when they lose, which is fair. Yeah. But I think that it showed that the Titans are the real deal. They can play with the best of them. They can play, and their Bumper's strategies of aggression, whether they work or not, are his own. And we can see when it gets really hot and it works, like against New York, it works. Yeah. But when it doesn't work, like against San Francisco, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's true.
And that can cost your team a victory. And I think it's kind of that high-intensity play that they've been banking on, but they should be confident banking on because it's worked for the entirety of 2019. This is they hadn't lost a game.
Yeah.
And so I think that Bumper will continue to do what Bumper does, because losing one game is not a reason to change how you
whole system. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I completely agree. Kate, what did you see from those games on Saturday? What do you think?
Again, just the New York game was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Honestly, I thought they were going to get, 3-0'd, or was it 4-0 for that?
I think it's at that point. 4 for those, yeah.
4-0 at that point. But they woke up, especially on Blizzard World, the one that they won. So they played really well, and for me it was kind of exciting to see. It was they had that motivation to kind of go against, because these two teams have a history too, going back to contenders as well. So this was the kids that wanted to be the New York Excelsior back that in the day, but they couldn't, and then this is them coming back and be yeah, we did this, we got this, and it was really exciting to see. If you know that history as well. So I don't know, it was just kind of nice to see New York wake up a bit. They were able to exploit them a little bit better on Blizzard World, but at the end of the day, Vancouver is Vancouver.
Yeah. If you're New York, the narrative has been painted recently by people like Slasher. He sent out a tweet about New York's playoff record, stage playoffs and the season playoffs combined versus their season record, and it's obviously much worse. Do you guys buy into the fact that New York are kind of a team of chokers that can't play in high pressure, or is this just an unfair criticism by Slasher and picking apart something that's not really there? What do you see? Zach, you're shaking your head.
I say no, because up till now we've had 4 stage playoffs and a season playoff. And they've won 2 of those stage playoffs.
Yeah. And
while last stage, you could probably say that they choked. Or in the season playoffs, you could say that they choked. there can only be one winner at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the fact that they own half of the stage playoff titles kind of shows that, like, my favorite part about Overwatch League is that everyone can lose to everyone on a given day.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. That's how a competitive league stays afloat. That's how you keep people interested. So when things like that happen, when Seoul does beat New York, it's huge talking point because New York is such this dominant force and has been. But to say that they're a team of chokers and that's how it is unfair, especially when we've only had one actual whole season playoff structure.
Yeah.
And I think that also, like, when it comes to playoffs, teams, as not to say teams aren't giving their all during the regular season, but like they're giving it all and then some because it's the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, and you're also coming up against more difficult opponents because they're in the top half of the league. They've made it this far and earned a spot in the playoffs. And so, if New York loses to one of these teams, it can be because they've played poorly or because they've choked, but it can also be because the other team plays well. Just like London, you could say choked out of this playoffs, but Hangzhou played really incredible.
Well. Very similar, yeah. I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think people are just reluctant to admit that some teams just get outplayed sometimes.
Yeah.
They have like this very like preconceived notion in their head that this team is the best team. They cannot fathom that the other team just might play better that day. Yeah. And it happens all the time. Yeah. Like
Atlanta, New York.
This is very Atlanta, New York. Philly and Florida hurts me a lot.
Yeah.
They played better that day.
Yeah.
I can admit it. I've gone through the many stages of grief. They played better that day. It just happens.
Yeah.
And so I think Slasher is just trying to stir up things that Slasher does.
Yeah.
This wasn't a case of New York choking. It's just they played better.
Yeah.
End of the day.
I'm saying the same thing in different words here, but they're a victim of their own expectations. New York, because of their dominant start, they are the first dynasty in the Overwatch League, just because of their season performance in Season 1. That sets them up for the rest of their existence, unless there's a massive roster shakeup where they just completely collapse. They're always going to be NYXL, and they're always going to be the NYXL that we thought of them in Season 1, even if, Pine and Saviobi don't play or something like that, Like, it doesn't matter. And even though the arc's gone, like, they're still that same team. So, yeah, I think that people just expect them to come in and look like perfect Overwatch every day. And, they have shown more and more that they are human. They're just a team like everyone else. It seems like a team like Vancouver, we thought was kind of the same way. We thought they were like this inhuman, unkillable team. And then they lose as well. So I'm glad we're kind of deconstructing those narratives that these teams are unbeatable. Because I think that will I think eventually build on the players and get in their heads. Like, when Bumper's sitting there with his hands in his face, that kid hasn't lost in over a year, and that gets in your head, and you see social media, and so I think NYXL that has happened to them in the past too. But I'm kind of glad to see them, have a little bit of a real, not like a reality check or anything, but just like we are human, we're just a team. Let's just play our game, not worry about the expectations. We're not chokers. That's not a thing. These aren't not clutch players. Like, they've made so many clutch plays, obviously. So, yeah, I agree with you guys. I don't buy into that narrative either. I think New York will be just fine going forward. But, yeah. Any final word on those games before we talk about the finals?
I'm good.
Sorry we didn't talk too much about the Spark Shot game. There's just not a lot. Sorry, Darby. There's not a lot to talk about, unfortunately. We've seen time and time again. I'll just say one quick thing. We've seen time and time again that teams that go up against Shock in the GOATS matchup that aren't willing to be extremely aggressive and really kind of take it back to them or play DPS just aren't going to have success. At a baseline, it's very tough to do. Shock's style is specifically oriented to take advantage of that, because they kind of formed it when GOATS was, people didn't really know how to navigate it, and so San Francisco said, we're just going to play it aggressively, and we're going to take it to teams that don't know what they're doing quite yet. And teams still haven't figured it out, I think, to a large degree, and San Francisco just continues to capitalize on that time and time again. Not insulting the Sparks GOATS at all, I just think that to the level that the Shock and the Titans are on, they're just not quite there with that composition. Obviously, they lost. Good.
They lost 3 maps the entire stage,
also
including
that.
playoffs.
Yes. Yes, we can also say that. They're a hell of a team right now. At a baseline, like, incredible team. So yeah, that sets up an epic rematch rematching the Stage 1 playoff finals in Stage 2 now. We have Vancouver going up against San Francisco. Games on ABC, just like the Spark Shock game was, which unfortunately that one was on ABC. It was a big, cracked up game on a Sunday afternoon, and it lived up to the hype, every bit of it. Kind of going, we'll look at this one a little bit closer because it is the finals. So Shock go up initially 2-0 on Control. Control is kind of the Shock's wheelhouse, right? I mean, we kind of saw that one coming. And then that King's Row map was unbelievable. It was so back and forth.
It was so intense. I'm still not over the I'll save you, Mr. President thing. When
supercharging him.
Oh yeah, man, that was beautiful.
So good.
Need me to maintain like that.
God, everyone does, man. And so those two I don't think we'll talk about a ton, but this Paris map was super interesting. We have to talk about what happened at Paris. This was one of the weirdest rounds of Overwatch I've ever watched in my entire life. So Paris 1 it's not like it's a hard point. It's generally one of the points that's taken more quickly. It's Paris 2 that's really tough because of just the way it is. It's so good to defend on. And Shock go on offense and just can't get it done. I mean, just get absolutely dominated by Vancouver's defense. And then Vancouver just runs in, plays Farah, boops Choi, and then it's over. And Monty literally says it's over. And he just puts down his arms.
That boop, though.
Yeah. That was so unfortunate. So unfortunate.
So what happened? What happened to San Francisco that map? And they've at this point in the series had dropped 2 maps in a row, and that's when the alarm starts to go off. Oh shoot! What did you guys see Vancouver do? I know we're talking really specifics here, so we don't have anything. That's fine. But did you guys see Vancouver do anything specifically on that map that caused this to happen?
They didn't sit back. They didn't let the Shock come to them. On defense, they went to the Shock. And I think that the Shock wasn't expecting that. Even though they know that Vancouver's a very aggressive team, I don't think they expected the level of aggression on Paris defense on a map that they chose to take the fight to them. Maybe they expected a little bit of a bunker comp at first just to try something. Yeah. But no, Vancouver said, we have a bumper and we're going to go destroy you. So,
yeah, I think the Shock just got in their heads at that point. Yeah, because they weren't able to get around it. They just looked so lost. That was the most lost I think I've seen them look since the season started.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that map just in general was very interesting to me to watch. So at that point,
the resilience from the Titans to stay on the point when it looked like Shock could have taken it 3-4 times.
Oh my God.
They got back, they got onto the point, and they won those fights that they were outnumbered in.
Yeah. And when the Shock were attacking, it seemed like time and time again they would get down 2 players and then start using ults. They were double layering their support ults a lot of times. There was just some real... it was not the Shock we're used to seeing. Which set up this kind of beautiful redemption arc for the second half of the game, where the Shock come back and win the last 3 maps, down 1-2, kind of going into halftime, if you will. I thought it was incredible. One of those maps is a control point map, which the Shock just win because that's just the way they are. You have another payload map, but the last map of the series was Blizzard World, and there are so many things we could talk about on this map that were insane. I'll kind of go through my favorite part of it and then maybe hear you guys's, but the Shock, I think it was they were attacking, and Sinatra, it was on my top play, so I was thinking about it earlier. Sinatra uses a grav early in the fight, and the fight kind of goes through, and he's building charge for another one. Each team loses 3 or 4 players, and Sinatra gets another grav, uses it again, a second grav on the fight, and it's 2v2, and that grav secures everyone, and they get the kill and cap the point, and then start moving the payload. And if you don't make that clutch play, if you don't decide in that moment, there was no way that was a communicated thing. Maybe he's yelling winnable, but it's not like you practice being 2v2 on a point with the series on the line. That's crazy that he decided to just press Q, rip it, and they pulled it off. So that's what gets the payload going, and that's what eventually secures them to win and get to that final spot where they prevent Vancouver from getting to. But man, I mean, that to me was just unbelievable. What did you guys see on that map? Like what happened for Vancouver there? Like why? Like they didn't fall apart. They kind of did at the end on their offense when they had like 6 ults coming in. Shock had 2. But like what did you guys see in that map?
You can go for a second.
Oh, that's what I was going to point out is when there was the 6 ults to 2.
Yeah.
No, that can't happen.
Yeah.
And I think that is a little bit of Vancouver expecting to win that fight because they had the 6 ults.
Yeah.
And the Shock showing their resilience of we're not going to give up, kind of a reverse of what happened on Paris, and the fact that like they were just resilient and said we're going to go into this fight. It doesn't matter how many ults we have. We're gonna go and we're gonna win it. And I think that mindset, that resilience, that thinking, that wholehearted belief that they can take that fight, that I don't think any other team in the league can look at themselves honestly and say, we can take this fight. I think on 6 out of 7 days, the Shock can't take that fight. But they had the belief and somehow took that, and I was speechless when it happened. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I completely agree with Zach. That was just, they just wanted it, and they were just kind of determined to just, be patient and just kind of, they were determined to fight it out. And Vancouver just kind of wasted those 6 ults.
Yeah.
Essentially. They did.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree with Zach. It was definitely their mental fortitude that helped them win that fight.
Yeah. And sorry, I am realizing someone called me out in chat. I was wrong on that. It was the 2v2 was on defense for San Francisco. That is right. It was a time bank fight basically. It put Vancouver down on time bank to the point where they were forced into that final fight kind of situation. So thank you, chat, for keeping me accountable. But yeah, I mean, the series was just wild. I mean, I think you made a good point earlier, Zach, with Bumper. Bumper is someone we've talked about a lot so far. In the league as being a top main tank, uber aggressive. He's kind of like, when a Targaryen is born, you flip a coin, and the Targaryen's either going to burn down the world or not, basically. When Bumper charges in, you flip a coin, and Vancouver's either going to dominate against New York or they're going to get dominated. I think that's true to an extent. I think it also speaks to, who Bumper's going up against affects him a lot. I think going up against New York is almost the ideal matchup for the Titans because they're a more passive team, cerebral, let things come to them, where Shock is not about that life. I mean, they are constantly on you, and that's the way we talk about the Shock all the time. I think when Bumper's put on his heels, I think is when he struggles most, and I think the Shock learned that after Stage 1 finals, and that was their game plan on this. Put Moth in there to the point where there's so much busyness happening on the front line that Violet can't get touched in the back. He's just by himself in the back. And we're going to talk about our finals MVPs in a bit. But Violet absolutely popped off in this series. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was Jonak level clutchness and fragging. He did a ton of healing. I mean, his damage wasn't like astronomical. It wasn't through the roof or anything. But his final blows, I think, matched his deaths, which is always really, really good in Overwatch. As a Zenyatta, it's insane. So San Francisco to play that way and understand that they're setting up Violet to make these plays, and then they talk about it on the cast, but when you're in that position and you're Violet and your team puts you in the spot to make the plays and then you do it, that is a whole different kind of thing that rarely happens, I feel like, and when it does happen, it is perfect and it's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And that is what happened in this finals. I mean, they did, it was so well orchestrated. They did exactly what they wanted to Vancouver, especially in the second half of the series. So I mean, it was incredible, and you could see it on the players' faces when they won. I mean, Krusty runs out and is crying. I think there's a shot of Sinatra just like standing back, like out of breath, like mind is just dead, and Super's like clinging onto him, just like about to fall asleep. Because I mean, Super's eyes, he has like crow's nests like this deep during the game. The dude is like not sleeping, and for them to win it was just so good. I love for that team. After all of season 1, and this is a good, like, you can finally rest moment. You are a good team. Validation to San Francisco, come on. So I'm about it. I'm glad they won it. It sucks, like we said. It's an end of an era for Runaway. I mean, Kate, you followed, Apex and more contender stuff. This was a historic ending to this team's. You want to kind of talk through that a little bit?
Yeah, I can. It's just let me. Not actually sure the exact number of matches it was, but I'm pretty sure they haven't lost since.
It was like March of 2018.
2018. Yeah. Like it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And prior to that, earlier that morning, Runaway also lost their end streak.
Prophetic.
And that was kind of, everyone was like, it's gonna happen. Everyone was getting really worried after that because once that streak kind of broke, it was like the Shock have been looking super good. People were more nervous about that, and it ended up happening. And so it was really hard to see Sad Bumper. I would argue it was more sad than Sad Super. They're both very sad to look at, but you can tell that these boys they have loved that they've been on this win streak, and they were so proud, and they put their all into every single game, no matter who they're playing against. And so for this, it was a very hard fight, and to lose it like that, it was just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But all teams need to lose at some point.
Yes.
Because it puts so much pressure on the players. You get these kind of meaner narratives as time goes on. I experience it with Fusion University all the time, calling those boys the anime villains of contenders because they went on that, crazy win streak. Same thing was happening with Vancouver and with Runaway.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of pressure. And so I think now that that's off, they'll be good. They're going to be good to go. This one loss, they're not a bad team. They're not going to, go backwards from it. They're going to move forward, and they're going to do what they do best, which is let Bumper do Bumper things, and then they play the game.
It'll be interesting to see, though, what they do going forward. Because they don't have the pressure of this streak, does that change their play style? Does it change their substitutions? Does it change their starting lineup? Are they going to be more flexible with that? Do we see them drop maps that they wouldn't have beforehand? Do we see them drop games that they wouldn't have before?
Yeah.
I think it would only be against some of the better teams. I think that you're gonna it happens. You're gonna lose some maps. It is what it is. Yeah. And I think that not having this pressure is going to change them. How good of a change or how bad of a change that is, we can only tell with time.
Yeah, I think to that point, I think it would kind of be like an NYXL move. You get Kush, you're in the season playoffs. Maybe when they clinch the 1 seed, they really start doing this, or clinch a top seed or whatever. Do they start messing around, and to what extent? I think will be very interesting. We're kind of in that late season. I mean, we're in the second half of the season now, so we're in that late season push where teams might kind of consider doing that if they're on the better end of the league. So that's a great point. Very interesting to watch, I think. So before we move on to the fun All-Star festivities, we've talked about all the games. We've done the TGH thing, and we've recapped you. We love our recaps here at the Game House. We love them.
Really?
Yes, right? Totally.
Yeah, it's like Brick Jail. We love Brick.
Yeah.
We love Brick.
Love Brick. Great. Anyway, so you guys, we need to crown our finals MVP. I think the broadcast said Violet was the State Farm game MVP of the game. I don't know if it's officially the finals MVP. I think it probably is, but who would you guys say? We're probably all going to say Shock players here because they won and they played incredible and they deserve it. Which Shock player is y'all's finals MVP?
Mine was Violet. You're right. He was just popping off that entire series. Every single game, he was just doing consistently well, and then for the final, he just turned it out. And I think it was a well-deserved win for the State Farm or official MVP thing for him.
Yeah. Zach, what about you?
It's hard to argue against Violet, especially with what you were saying when his team sets him up in that role where kind of pivotal, and he pivots exactly how he needs to. Yeah. It's hard to argue that, but I will say that might be one of the most impressive Zarya performances I have seen in watching Overwatch. Sinatra just went off. He maybe had 1, maybe 2 bad grabs the whole series. He showed why he deserves to be starting when the Shock have how many DPS on the bench.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. I'm gonna go with Choi Hoban for this. He didn't eat a lot of grabs. I know that's kind of the metric that gets used for like stellar diva play a lot, but I think he was just a pillar of consistency. He was never out of position. I think
Except on Paris.
Yeah.
That wasn't his fault.
Yeah,
that wasn't his fault.
I love seeing it.
He used his jet cooldown too soon. Gotta save those cooldowns. Yikes. Besides that, I think he was super consistent. I think there's a lot of things from diva players you just don't see. Damage eaten, things like that. Like when Super charges in and Choi's flying behind him, dematrixing. That's helping Super out quite a bit to stay alive. There are a lot of things like that happen in games. A lot of this is because Violet and Sinatra were off the board. I also love Super. I'm not going to take anything away from him. I think he had... you could pick anyone. You could pick Moth.
Mm-hmm.
But Choi, especially, across the whole playoffs, when you're playing against Shanghai, you have to have a diva that's aware to be searching out the Sombra. He did an excellent job of that. I think, throughout the playoffs and especially in the finals, I just think he's an underappreciated player, and I just want to throw him a bone, basically. So kind of in the same vein, we're talking about MVPs. Maybe the most meme-worthy thing in the league is coming up. The talent takedown. If you guys don't know, officially, the All-Stars, it's like Overwatch League All-Star Weekend is happening Wednesday and Thursday. We have the talent takedown, Widowmaker 1v1 quarterfinals and semis, All-Star Arcade. God, who knows? There's some wacky things in that. They listed all of them. They're pretty goofy. Widowmaker 1v1 finals that night late, and then the official All-Star game Thursday, 8 p.m. Central. So, talent takedown. Last year was hallmarked by Jonathan Reinforced Larson just stunting on kids, on Torbjorn and all different kinds of heroes, and Joshua Sideshow Wilkinson feeding hard. It was a feeding performance by Josh. Sorry if you're watching. True.
I can say that. I subbed in.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes, if you sub, you can say whatever you want to about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going into this. We have some new kind of challengers entering the arena. We have Mika Burton playing. We have Danny Lim playing. I don't know. I'm assuming we have I'm assuming Wolf and Achilleos will be in it. I'm thinking they're not going to put Reinforce in again. I don't know for sure. So maybe don't sign me on it.
We can hope.
I don't think he'll be in.
Might surprise us.
And I don't think they'd put a Vast in, someone like that, like a former pro. That would be wacky. I was gonna try and find it really quick, but I don't want to look through it. So all that to say, who is going to be the talent takedown MVP? What do you guys think? Who's gonna pop off in this? Who? Bren.
Brenji.
You think the Brenji's coming out?
I think the Brenji's coming out. I think Bren's gonna be the MVP.
Wow. It could be the
the
Brito maker. I think
the Brito maker and the Brenji.
Yeah.
Hell yeah!
Wow.
I believe in Bren. I'm Team Bren for this.
Man, that's tough. I don't know who to think. We've never seen Danny or Mika play. We don't know. They're wild. They're such wild cards. I don't know. That's tough.
Are either of them console? Because we had
I
Malik
don't know.
last year.
That's true. Oh, Malik playing Reaper on the Xbox controller up there.
Bless his heart.
As someone who plays
when...
with the hybrid controller, guys, I respect me some Malik for that.
Speaking of, he is my pick. He is my sleeper pick.
Ooh.
I think that his transition to from season 1 to season 2 of where he was as a commentator and analyst, I think him moving to the desk is going to give him that much more confidence, and maybe we'll see him transition his game to a mouse and keyboard as well. Ooh. Even if he doesn't, I think that Malik is my choice as a console player myself.
Okay. I'm going to go with, just based on his fashion, I'm going to go with Danny here.
I thought they were going to say Uber.
Maybe the opposite. Those shirts, I love silk shirts.
Oh, no,
man.
those are...
They're amazing.
I love it.
I love him.
I'll stay indifferent. But Danny, the dude looks like Dwayne Johnson up there some days with his turtleneck chain combos. You can't have that much drip and not just destroy in game. He is going to be tactical crouching all over these kids. I think it's going to be nasty. This is going to be a whole different sign of Danny Lim. I think he's standing up and just dogman style yelling at the crowd.
Danny's dogman.
Danny's going to get hyped. That's my hot take. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but if I can guarantee...
I hope he gets interviewed so that he can take the mic from...
Oh my gosh.
Let
Actually,
Danny take the mic.
oh my...
Poetic.
That is like my new thing I want to happen. Holy cow. I mean, if we can guarantee one thing, if you're a viewer out there and you missed last year's and you're wondering what am I getting myself into, the one thing we know is that Josh is going to feed. Sideshow is going to feed. I mean, that's the one thing you can bet your cards on. If you need to go to Vegas, you can bet on that. That's all I can say. And there'll be some wild antics. But in all seriousness, jokes aside, that is something you definitely want to tune into. It's so fun to watch the casters play each other. It makes you feel a little bit more at home because they're playing it the more of the normal person's elo. So kind of nice. For the things leading up to the All-Star game, do you guys have any hot takes? The Widowmaker 1v1s, the All-Star Arcade. What do you guys think? Any predictions on who's taking the Widowmaker title? Any hot takes? Carpe.
It's going to be Carpe this year.
Mm-mm.
Uh-huh.
Not happening.
Really?
It is happening.
Well,
it is happening.
He'll dust
I believe
off
in
the
my
old
fish.
Widowmaker sensitivities and
Yes.
finally get back on it.
Yes, let him play Widow. This is... It's sad that this is where I have to be able to see it, but I think he's gonna pop off, and I think he's gonna do good. I think he'll do well.
I think Decay can take it.
Oh.
He'll take Decay easy.
He has been playing, even when Surefour has been subbing in. Surefour, last year's Widowmaker 1v1 champion,
That's true.
when he is subbed in, they often are running Decay on the Widowmaker, and he has been hitting some picks. But if I had to have my hottest take, it would be that Gesture himself will pull off exactly what he did on King's Row, and he will take the crown with his Widowmaker skills.
You just hate me, Zach. You just hate all the things I love. Because that was against Soon, and that hurt my feelings.
Oh, was it really? I
Yes.
forgot about that part.
Straight owned him.
Oh, that hurt.
So if they let him compete, I think he'll win it
That
all.
would be
But if they
incredible.
don't let him compete, I think Decay can take it.
Oh.
I think we should let Bumper in, and we should let Bumper get on Widow and see what happens just for the lulz.
Actually, yes, that would be incredible.
He'd be super aggressive. He would just use the
Amazing.
claw thing to go as close as he could to them, just like his aggressive charges in.
Which also, speaking of, maybe biggest All-Star snub of the year is Bumper, by the way.
He's
Not
not
an
there.
All-Star. I was literally about to say,
He's
on
the reserves, isn't he?
oh, I didn't click the view more button. I'm an idiot. He's on. We're good.
Yeah, I was about to say he's in reserves. That's why I want him in.
Well, I was going to say then, for the arcade, I think you put in, if you're the Pacific Division, you put in a Mang, you put in Gushui, who are both already starters, so easy. You put in OG, Super, and Bumper, and you play all main tanks and let the boys run wild. Let them have some fun.
Have y'all heard of Reinhardt bumper cars?
No, what is this?
That is a very fun mode where you just make Reinhardt go super fast and you just charge at each other until you get ultimate. Just go. Let me have this.
Man, I've played
This is what I want.
I've played a Wrecking Ball version of this where you go on points, and if you enter a point, you die when you get booped off of it. So you only play control points, and you can
like
only be
sumo
in your
wrestling.
ball, and it's like sumo wrestling, and it's
That
wild.
sounds fun.
It's really fun. We need to have a Game Haus workshop night one night. Probably on stream, so stay tuned for
That'd be
that,
fun.
viewers.
Yeah.
Console player says, "Yay!"
Yeah. But I don't know. I'd love to see Saya player on the Widowmaker 1v1s. I'd love to see him kind of come back. He's a player who we know is so good, but has just been locked in a dark cell, not able to do what he does best for so long, as have so many players. Like, I think Carpe is in that group as well. Like, not quite so locked away, but still pretty locked away.
Fraggy.
Another great example. Gosh.
Not even able to qualify. Feels bad.
Feels bad.
Feels bad.
That leads us up to the final thing, the All-Star game. I don't really have a pointed question for this one because I don't know what we're going to see. The starters might play like the first map and sub out. Like, I don't know what that's going to look like because they're just the fan vote. Any predictions from the All-Star game? I'll just leave it very general. Any
A
predictions?
good time.
A good time. Do we see a Torb hammer kill?
Yes, from Poco.
From Poe? I was about to ask from who.
I say we see we say at least 3 attempts. I don't think any are gonna actually
Really?
Get the kill.
I think we're gonna see. Oh my gosh, man! The Atlantic Division has Dogman and Cruz and Dante on the bench. I think we could see some heavy memes. If they put those 3 in with like Poco and Pine, I mean that would just be a lot of stunting on kids, as we say in the industry. That would be wild. I just want to see stuff like that. You know.
Yeah. I just hope everyone has fun. That's literally all this is. This is for the players to have a good time. It's not supposed to be super serious, not supposed to stress them out. Let them be crazy. Let them do whatever they want.
I hope that Pine does what you wouldn't and dab in front of all of them.
Only
Let Pine dab.
only Pine can do what I cannot do. He can do it for us. Well, I think we've done everything justice tonight, gang. I think we're good. So yeah, definitely tune in to the All-Star Weekend coming up. As you can tell from our last 20 minutes of discussion, it's going to be a lot of memes, a lot of goofy stuff. Pine will probably dab, so definitely you're going to want to tune into that. And as always, we've got great coverage here at the Game House through our videos, through our articles. We cover each of the 20 teams in the Overwatch League with a beat writer who does incredible recaps and previews. Like, we are the coverage for the Overwatch League. You could literally just do one shop stop here, and you would know everything that's going on, which I don't think any other site can say that right now. Incredible. So please click our articles. We'll be on Twitter. Connect with us there. We'd love to talk to you more if you're out there watching on YouTube or Twitch. Thank you for stopping in, and have a good night, and we'll see you all next time, whenever that may be. Tune in to House Queens tomorrow night, and tune in to the D&D stream before that to just have some chill. If you're drinking some wine and hanging out, tune in. Have a good night.